Greetings from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. We care so much about the reputation of our University of Montreal, Université de Montréal, and our professors. But most importantly, we aim to provide quality education to all types of learners, no matter their income, place, or background. You may wonder what EDUlib is, the name that you saw in the description of this presentation. So course.edulib.org is an LMS where French-Canadian universities host their MOOCs. It's a personalized platform with open edX as the core, with our branding and spice. So when we plan for quality assurance in MOOCs, we can definitely follow the frameworks developed by Commonwealth of Learning, Open Up Ed, Pan-European MOOC Initiative, MOOC with QEMEN, the European Alliance for Quality of MOOCs. We can even complete the Course Creator Plus Professional certificate with the best practices for edX partners. How do you balance compliance with international, national, and institutional standards? And how much space do you leave for innovation? Where do you focus more, on the process or on the final product? Do you make your own assessment, or do you delegate it to external parties? So the question also is, why do you listen to this presentation? Why does quality assurance interest you? And yes, we would like your answers in the chat. So our team has quality in mind during the whole process of MOOC creation, starting from the analysis to design to implementation to realization to evaluation. My two colleagues and I will describe today what we use internally as processes and tools related to QA, mainly in the last phases of the MOOC creation. I'll start with validation. During the design phase, all the work done by teachers, scientific assistants, and course contributors is peer validated, commented, and improved on the go. We mainly work with extremely detailed storyboards per course module, containing learning outcomes, module structure in all the sections, and units with texts, images, formative and summative questions, everything that later will be put on the learning platform. We usually use Google Word or GitHub for storyboarding, and the editor is responsible for reviewing all texts, including subtitles. Even the course videos shot in the studio are watched and commented on TechSmith by at least 3 people. The versionings are all recorded and can be consulted too. In addition, there is another round of validation by experts who are close to the course team, but are not part of it. An expert has a task to go through 1 or 2 modules that are already on EDUlib and parallelly fill out the validation document with comments on each single web page and each single content container. At EU Montreal, we have multiple courses on artificial intelligence. So if there is a Jupyter notebook as part of the module, an expert would have to complete and approve it too. Alpha test. At the implementation phase, when the course in its entity is on the LMS, the core course team go through the course, bit by bit, page by page, to ensure the constructive alignment of learning outcomes, activities, and evaluations. The key performance indicators that were established in the beginning of the process are being checked now. The alpha test precedes the quality control step, and its purpose is to make the quality control report as short as possible with minimum suggestions for corrections. My colleague Vincent will unveil this step to you in a few moments. Beta test. It's my most favorite activity. We start with finding the appropriate profiles of learners that represent the audience of the course. Not to forget some college and university teachers that may want to use a particular MOOC as part of the accredited course. We provide them access to the MOOC, as well as instructions, target dates, and a feedback form they have to fill out for each module. Spot check. After the improvements that follow the alpha and beta test, one member of the team executes the last quick scan of the course, just to make sure all is good before the massive launch. Now the internal and external review. We consider the first month after a MOOC is live to be the most important in its life. It's the best time for the course team to check the forums for qualitative data and analytics for quantitative data, to analyze the newborn vital signs and react fast if needed. My colleague Natacha will also talk about the satisfaction survey analysis and how we use their results before the next course iteration. The MOOC creation process is lengthy and laborious. We do our best to make each MOOC live a long and successful life, even if some surgical treatments of taking out outdated content and inserting a brand new one may be required. The best external MOOC reviewers are hundreds and thousands of learners from all over the world. They are the reason why we make MOOCs. The second good external assessor is somebody who is evaluating a MOOC nominated for an award, evidently.
Hi, together we'll see our course quality control checklist. So the mandates of our quality control is technical, pedagogical, economical, legal, and of general satisfaction. So the scope of our quality control is punctual and unique. It's a single control before the publication of a MOOC. The duration is variable. It depends on the number of modules and the number of hours it takes to take the course. Any errors found during the control quality must be subject of a correction and are noted where, with, what, why, to ensure 100% transparency and traceability in the process. Our quality control has a collaborative intent. That's why we start on a Google Docs collaborative document from the start of the process. Our agreed upon format is we use Title I for module titles and Title II for unit titles. We note on every checklist the elements we verified, we know the problem we see, and the fix we fix directly on the course content. And sometimes when we cannot fix the problems we see, we add suggestions so that with the course team we can identify the course of action to take to correct the course contents. So the first and foremost quality control checklist we have in our process, and probably the most important from the point of view of the technical functioning of the course, is our global controls checklist. So in this checklist, we check the dates and details, we check the availability and configuration of the certificates, we check the assessments. So in the assessments panel, we check the passing grade has been configured, the types and number of assessments, and in the course plan, we check if the assessments have been configured on the units that need to. And finally, we check the communication plan. Sometimes there is no communication plan that has been drafted up by the course designers, so we make sure there are some communications that are ready to communicate with our future students or with our current students. And also, we remind them to buy our certificates, and if they have bought the certificate, we remind them to do the ID verification and to download their certificate. And finally, the final elements of the control checklist is the tools and tabs added. So we usually add an FAQ tab in a course and the certificates tab to describe how to get the certificate. And sometimes we need to add advanced tools like the Note tool and other tools like IPR, for example, in the advanced settings of the course. So This second checklist is the quality control for the course presentation, so the About page and Module 0. This is the most important checklist in the point of view of motivation for registration and the management of expectation and also from a legal point of view. So the course outline, the authors, and the usage rights. For each unit of each module, we also have a checklist. So in this checklist is very important for checking the educational quality, the technical quality, and also the quality of the training in general. So attention to detail is paramount in this step because we check each content of each module specifically. We verify that the module in the studio homepage is ready and that all the units are integrated. And we verify that the audience-only units are set up correctly and that course with progressive unveiling have a reminder at the end of the previous module to tell the students when the next module will be available. For each content unit, we check that there is no error in the text or in the videos. So this can be very time-consuming. And we also check that the universal accessibility is baked in the course. The final checklist for the quality control assessment is the course conclusion checklist. It's very important in terms of economic and general satisfaction. In this checklist, we have a reminder for the certificate. Is it visible to the participants? Our feedback survey, is it available and is the data shared with our support team? And when the course ends, is there a text or video thank you for the participants? And are the course sponsored thanked? So at the end of every checklist, we have a debriefing. So the debriefing is a meeting during which we review the control document with the course stakeholders to explain and justify the course corrections and to discuss suggestions for improvement. We have a debriefing with the instructional designer and in real time through the document with comments. And we also have weekly discussions on the progress of the quality control. And at the end of the process, we have a debriefing with the extended course team. So here are some tips for you if you want to do some quality control assessments. It's a very subjective task. So you have to be aware of your biases and your professional responsibilities before starting. It's always easier to destroy than to build. It's always easier to critique than to create. So our subconscious affects the way we do the quality control. If you're angry, if you're defensive or sad, these biases are baked into your feedback. So the way you control these biases is to maximize transparency and traceability on everything that has been seen and done in the quality control. And we seek a consensus on the solutions with the various stakeholders in the course. During quality control, we take frequent breaks to stay alert and detect problems efficiently. Our approach is focused on the total quality of the course, so we allow ourselves to question fundamental choices taken by the course design team. Finally, our approach is based on collaboration and openness, so we take care of our comments' tone to take care of our teams. With the checklist we just saw, we're able to reach all our mandates. Technically, is the course working properly? Yes. Pedagogically, is the course engaging and informative? Yes. Economically, does our course prompt the users to buy a certificate? Yes. Legally, are the authors and their rights mentioned? Yes. And finally, on the general satisfaction side, are the contents flawless and well presented? We hope so. So now let's move on to evaluating the success of a MOOC with Natacha.
Let's now move on the step of evaluating the success of a MOOC. At the Center for University Pedagogy at the U Montreal, we were trying to find a way to measure the success of our MOOCs. I recently created a grid that would allow us to measure the success while providing possible solutions for iteration of a MOOC. With Vincent's help, I was able to arrive at the final result of this mandate that I will present to you today. The selection of criteria was done first with the help of literature review in order to be aware of the quality criteria that already existed. Next, I made a comparison between each of the texts I read in order to identify the quality criteria that stood out the most between each of the texts. Then, we resumed the satisfaction surveys that we offer at the end of each of our MOOCs. These satisfaction surveys are based on a Likert scale. Totally agree, 5 points. Agree, 4 points. Neither disagree nor agree, 3 points. Disagree, 2 points. Totally disagree, 1 point. With the answer obtained in the satisfaction survey, we made an average of these points to obtain the result on which we worked. Here are the results of our analysis in the different MOOCs that we can find on our platform. We have reviewed each of the criteria that are present there. For each of these criteria, we have highlighted the highest and the lowest score. The highest scores are in green and the lowest in orange. Here's an example for our content relevance criteria. As you will see, MOOC 6 has a higher score than MOOC 8. From this score, we try to identify from these two MOOCs what made the content relevant or not. We then investigated in these two MOOCs to identify an example of what was relevant or not, so that we could get an idea of how we could build our evaluation grid for this criteria. We repeated this same method for all of our criteria. When analyzing the statistics, I tried to find evidence directly from the different MOOCs. For example, which image made it obvious that it was not related to the text below. Once I found concrete example of what was considered a success and what was not, I was able to decline each of my criteria from highly satisfactory to unsatisfactory. In a few seconds, you will see an example of a comparison between two MOOCs. And here's what I have identified as an example of success and an example where some elements should be improved. In the first MOOC, we have a good example of a successful element, as all the MOOC content is related to each other. In the second MOOC, the elements found in the course content are repetitive. There is a lot of duplicated information. Next, I will present each of the criteria we have chosen for our grid. The first criteria is on the relevance of the content. Is this content relevant to my understanding of the material presented? Can I put into practice what I have learned in a professional context and in a concrete way? These are questions that could guide you during your assessment. The second criteria is based on whether the content is accessible to everyone or not. So, when setting up a MOOC, it is important to try to popularize science when presenting the content, whether in videos, text, and images. Ensure that your content is accessible to everyone by providing additional explanation for terms that are deemed to be more specialized. The third criteria is on the diversity of content. Diversity of content can help you avoid falling into the trap of repetition. By diversifying the presentation format of your content, this will make your course more dynamic. By constantly using the same type of presentation format for your content, for example, your course only has videos, this can have a repetitive effect with your participants. Try using a variety of formats that will be equally educational for your participants. The fourth criteria is based on the usefulness of example, illustration, and explanation. When you add example and illustration to your course, make sure that they are related to the content presented and that they are useful to the understanding of your participants. The fifth criteria is based on the quality of the video performance. The teacher's delivery in a video is very important because it keeps participants interested in what's going on in your videos. The quality of performance depends on the dynamism, the presence, the tone, and the flow of the voice, and the quality of the animation. The sixth criteria is based on the quality of the exercises. When giving exercises to participants, one of the first things to consider is whether the questions being asked are related to the content that has been presented previously or throughout the course. If the question asked is unrelated to the content presented, it could confuse your participants. In addition, make sure that the wording of your question is short and precise. The seventh criteria is based on the quality of feedback. Good feedback can help your participants to have a better understanding of their mistakes if they got the wrong answer. Feedback for a good answer is also a good thing because you can provide additional explanation. Green brackets and red X's are not considered as good feedback. The eighth criteria is based on the quality of the videos. We are interested in the quality of sound and image, how video add value to learning, and the quality of delivery and dynamism. The ninth criteria is based on the quality of the visual. Only images and text will be included in this criteria because we already have 2 criteria for videos. At the level of the image, we are interested in its integration, its quality as well as its dimension. The last criteria is based on accessibility. The accessibility of your content should increasingly become a priority in the world of education. There are certain criteria that must be minimally respected in your MOOCs. Title in H3 and H4, alternative text for images, fonts, and contrast. Here is a part of our grid. People who want to use it can read the declination of criteria and select the declination that is most appropriate for their MOOC. Please note that this grid is intended as a tool for self-assessment of a MOOC so that learning designer can improve it for a next iteration. This grid is a new tool. It still needs to be tested and improved. I hope this information was relevant for you and may inspire you to have a grid like this for evaluating the success of your MOOCs. Thank you for your attention. Let's move on to the Q&A session.
All right. Hey, everybody. Time for Q&A. I guess I'll start with any questions that might be in the room, and then I'll scan through the chat and see what's there. Any questions? I can recap that for you. Everything was very clear. Did you have anything else to add?
I mean, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the explanation, and the presentation. This presentation is really clear, and we are. I think we can say we are understood everything, and when you are, it's. I mean, for me, it was unfamiliar, so I knew this information, and it's too good to repeat it and to know that everyone in the e-learning world on the same page and wants to provide a good and high quality online courses. So it's good video to sharing with the people. I mean, even on the YouTube channel to popularization how to create the good and high quality online courses. So thank you for the presentation.
Any other questions in the room? Okay. We've got one question that's in the chat. I just want to make sure. I don't know if it's been answered yet. Scanning through. Oh, there's a lot to catch up on here. So I see a question from Zachary. Question, is there a documentation provided to get the applications built and hosted on app stores for the latest OpenEdX stable release? I'm also concerned about configuration with Firebase provisioning, setup, and enabling features. Do you have any documentation for configuring that too? can one of the speakers unmute and speak, or is that?
That's from the previous talk.
Okay. All right, maybe instead of me scanning through this, if there's any other questions, maybe just post it in the chat now. And okay, here's one. In your findings, what's the relation in a successful MOOC and the number of enrollments?
Well, if we define the commercial success of a MOOC, the number of enrollment is the first metric we're going to see. But if we try to measure its pedagogical success, then we might use Natacha's criteria grid for self-assessment. There's also many other ways we could measure success in other metrics, but I think for this talk, it was mainly about pedagogical quality. Yes.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a good one.